Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? That is a question that everybody wants to know. And some pure decentralization maximalist or Bitcoin maxis might tell you it doesn't really matter. But I have been in Bitcoin for a very long time. I have gathered a lot of facts, and I'm here to tell you that every video you've seen so far that proposes who Satoshi might be is far from the truth. And guys, today I'm here to tell you who Satoshi Nakamoto is, or rather, who the puppet is pulling the strings behind the character of Satoshi Nakamoto. And you're going to want to watch this whole video because there will be an event that will happen that you need to be aware of. And as soon as this event happens, you need to know how to react and what position to be in to maximize your outcome in financial freedom and the future wealth of this world. If that sounds good to you, make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, because guys, I put out a lot of alpha content on this channel. I've been in this space for over 10 years. That's more than pretty much any other person on YouTube. And I have a lot of insight I want to share with you guys. Now, this is a theory, right? So this is a theory that I have. I pay attention to a lot of things. And if you know where to look, the puzzle pieces start to make a lot of sense. Now, what if I were to tell you that Satoshi Nakamoto wasn't any individual person, nor was it a small group of cypherpunks, nor was it the CIA, as some people believe? If you don't know already, it's quite obvious that politicians and presidents and the people who write the laws of the world are in the pockets of the most wealthy families in the world. I'm talking the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, Fords, Edison, Carnegie, right? These guys are the wealthiest families in the world. These are the guys who created electricity, founded the banks, made the railroads, oil, right? The titans of industry. So at one point or another, you've probably heard a quote from Nathan Rothschild said, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply." So here's where we get into my theory on what Bitcoin is all about. Now, for a long time, the United States dollar has ruled the world as the world reserve currency. And if any nation did not want to use that dollar and have it as a reserve, if they tried to abolish that standard, they would be taken out and destroyed. Well, we've seen, right? Approximately every 100 years, the major world reserve currency has crumbled and a new superpower has taken over. So what do? If you're in the 50th, 60th, 70th year of controlling the monetary supply that controls the world, and you know you don't have much time left? So what are you gonna do? You certainly can't let the dollar crumble and let China take over. And you also realize that the globe is evolving, that you have international politics. You need to be diplomatic, right? You cannot have the audacity to say, I think that the euro should be the dominating world reserve currency, right? Or the Mexican peso or whatever, because no one else is going to accept that. And of course, they have researchers everywhere. And of course, they're aware of what the cypherpunks are doing and trying to create a new money, a peer-to-peer electronic digital cash. Just the sound of that threatens the fiber of their existence, the power that they have. So wouldn't it make sense then, someone like the World Economic Forum would create something like Bitcoin and put it behind an anonymous figure called Satoshi Nakamoto? Of course, this whole process has to be done in a very elegant way. We do know that Satoshi has 1 million Bitcoin that has never moved. These are the first Bitcoin that had ever been mined. Now, a lot of you think that Satoshi is dead, and we might as well just say that these 1 million Bitcoin are gone and lost forever. But what happens the day that one of these things move? Who's doing that? Of course, this has to look organic. So some guy, right, or girl, or whatever, someone, the character, the puppet that they have, comes online as Satoshi Nakamoto and says, I created Bitcoin, here's my white paper, let me talk to you some things, and then finds someone like Hal Finney, right? And find some developers that are very smart, cypherpunks that can help Satoshi continue to bring Bitcoin to the world. They observed as it happened. Remember, this is an experiment. They couldn't be sure that this was going to take off and work, but as Bitcoin gained some traction, it went from being talked about once every 3 months on a random podcast here or there to being talked about once a month and then eventually twice a week. Then the likelihood of Bitcoin becoming the world reserve currency, those chances increase. So maybe in the very beginning, it was 5% likely that this would actually work. But every year that slider increases on confidence, and more than likely, because these guys own all of the media outlets in the entire world, they can influence narrative. So they can usher in the narrative. They can support just enough Bitcoin to where it continues to move forward. India bans it, then they unban it, then they ban it again. Right, they knew this would happen. Then El Salvador adopts it. Oh, is it illegal? Is it security? All of this is premeditated. They, of course, knew this would happen. Who's gonna regulate it? CFTC, SEC? Who's gonna be the first institution that does a Bitcoin ETF? When can pension funds and the largest funds in the world, the funds of nations, when will they get the green light to start deploying their capital into Bitcoin? How long would it take for the banks to build up the infrastructure to integrate Bitcoin into their service offerings, to become custodian? We know that this started back as early as 2015. So as Bitcoin starts to become more and more adopted, more wallet holders, more users, by now, where I believe we are 5, 7 years away, maybe 10, but I don't think so, before Bitcoin becomes a world reserve currency. Now, how does this happen? There's gonna be a big United Nations meeting somewhere where most of the nations around the world gather, and this will be well into a financial crisis of huge proportions, where it is very clear that the old monetary system does not work anymore. And by now, most major countries have already implemented their central bank digital currencies. If you haven't seen my video on that, I will put a link in the description below. Make sure you go check out my other idea of how they will be brought into the system. But you still need a world reserve currency. And nobody wants a dollar there anymore. It's just not fair to have one nation, right? When there's so many, we live in a world now where there's supposed to be more equality and political correctness. So in this meeting, somebody will stand up and say, does anyone have any idea what we should do for a world reserve currency? And of course, everyone from World Economic Forum and Bill Gates and Soros and Rockefellers, and they're just sitting there, giving each other little elbow bumps and giggling, because they know this is the only thing that makes sense. Somebody, and it's gonna be somebody from like Ethiopia, Uganda, Panama, like somebody from one of these little itty bitty nations is gonna stand up and be like, what about Bitcoin? And then everyone's gonna look around and go like, well, that seems to make sense. It doesn't belong to any one country. It's a global currency. And yeah, it's real sound money. It's like digital gold. And we used to rely on gold as a reserve for our fiat currencies. It's divisible. It's fungible. It's a great peer-to-peer unit of account. It seems to check all the boxes of a currency. And then everybody unanimously will agree that Bitcoin will be the world reserve currency. Now, keep in mind, we estimate that there's been somewhere between 4 and 6 million Bitcoin lost forever. Less than that, because some are assuming that Satoshi's 1 million are lost as well. But let's say conservatively 4 million Bitcoin are lost forever. So if you take 21 million, which is the total supply of Bitcoin that will ever be created, minus the 4 million that we're assuming have been lost forever, you get 17 million Bitcoin. If that's the entire supply of the entire world, and Satoshi Nakamoto, AKA the globalists, elites, World Economic Forum, if they started with 1 million Bitcoin 13 years ago, and every single year they become 8, 9% more confident that this plan is working, you better believe that they're upping their reserves by a lot. And there's a massive amount of huge whale wallets that we have no idea who they belong to. So my guess right now is that Satoshi right? The guys who care not who creates the laws, because they will control the monetary supply, the money supply. They would have a significant amount. I am guessing probably somewhere in the tune of at least 50% of the Bitcoin on the planet would be held by these people. Now, how will you know if this is right? Well, remember, it's going to seem organic. And, admittedly, we all want Bitcoin to be this utopian, beautiful thing that frees us from central bank digital currencies. And in fact, it will. It will give us an ability to not have to use a permissioned, centralized, bullshit central bank digital currency. While this story I'm telling you right now is not the knight in shining armor, rainbow, sunshine, and unicorn story that we all hoped Bitcoin would be, there's still an opportunity for you to at least benefit from this. The point is that Bitcoin will become a world reserve currency. It'll just be insanely intense if I am right, if this theory is right. We're not talking about a $1 million Bitcoin. We are talking about a 10, 15, 20, dare I say, $50 million Bitcoin. Guys, this is a theory. I have no evidence right now to show you to back this up, but how did I come up with this? Well, I learn a lot, I pay attention, and this is just something I came up with, from a collective knowledge of education and research that I do on a daily basis for the past 15 years of my life. This was fun for me to make. It's a theory that I have. Whether I am wrong or right on this idea, and guys, I'm not saying that I necessarily believe this. It's just a theory. I don't really know, but it does make sense to me. But the moral of the story is, make sure that you have Bitcoin and prepare, because it's inevitable. The writing's on the wall. I've been watching this for the past 10 and a half years happening. It's never been so crystal clear in my entire life. Does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. I'm glad I got Bitcoin. You got Bitcoin yet? You better. Guys, let me know what you think about this. Am I crazy? Is it interesting? Will you help me with some research? I will leave a link in the description below, a Google form. And I would like, if you want to support, let me know in the comments, submit this Google form, and let's collectively work together to see if we can put some more evidence behind this. And maybe this becomes more than just a conspiracy theory. Maybe this becomes an actual theory, and maybe the day that we see the first Bitcoin move from Satoshi's wallet, then we'll know.